Hello, John.
Hello, Alma.
Who sings well, prays twice? Can you explain this to me, John, for people who don't know what it
That's right.
means?
Various people have said that various saints, and Saint Augustine is reported as being one that said, when you sing, you're praying twice, you're praising God, and which is a good thing. And that is exactly the way Mass was celebrated when I was young and up to my 30s. Uh, the Mass was in the Latin language, which was regarded as the universal language of the church, and you had a choir up in the choir, and they were trained in all the rest of it. And so the people as well would you miss, and you would know the hymns because it was part of the culture. And
Hmm.
so you sang a lot of it was in Latin, and the Gregorian chant was the way it was done, and it was very uplifting. That's the
Wow.
strange thing. And when that was kind of eventually, all these changes that come about, all that great Gregorian chant and that those great choirs and the people singing, it began to sort of drift away, and now you don't really have that type of singing much. Only in if the Latin mass is celebrated, then you're liable to hear that type of singing, and it's lovely. That's why the mass said in Latin now in various churches is attracting people because of perhaps the singing as well as the priest facing the tabernacle and the reverence attached to it, and of course the Gregorian chant is the way it's done.
It is indeed. And my favorite music is probably church music. I was at a funeral there a couple of years ago. I think it was something by the sea. There's a church called something by the sea over on the south side, Star by the Sea, or I can't
What
remember what it
what
was.
part was it in?
What's that?
What part was it in? Yeah.
What
Was
part
it in
was?
Kerry or was
Oh, it was in Dublin.
oh right, yeah. It might have been
Star
the
of the
start of
Sea, I
the
think it was.
century.
I think it was something like that anyway. But anyway, there was this
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, that's a
and
lovely church.
he was sitting up at the top. He was an elderly man. I suppose he would have been about near 80. And the Lord is my shepherd. I never realized how beautiful it was until he sang. So he had a soprano, a beautiful woman singing first. And then he was just a member of the mass. He was sitting at the front row on his own, and he joined her without being asked. Okay. And this powerful voice with a loaded timbre in it came at me, and I just thought, wow, who is he? And afterwards I spoke to him. I said, wow, where did you get that voice? He had the deepest, most beautiful voice, and he joined in with that woman for the Lord is my shepherd. And I never forgot the song once I heard him singing it. I just thought, wow, that is a beautiful
Exactly.
song.
And I was in that church many a time when the mass was celebrated in Latin, and the church was packed because when I was working in Dublin and I was living here, there, and yonder, and I wound up in a nice apartment or bedsitter, shall we say, but commodious, and a good facilities in it, and a kind of a detached house, which was very handy for there. And the Star of the Sea was the local church, and by goodness, it'd be packed, and the hymns and the singing. But when you were there, obviously he was an old timer, but he would have known all these hymns, and the congregation would have sung. But he was nearly a lone voice, and it just shows you the way things have changed in some ways for the worse.
That's the thing. So I just want to read out something here this is from Catholic Ireland, and it's an article from 1999, quite a while ago. That's nearly 25 years ago. It says great importance should be attached to the use of singing in the celebration of Mass with due consideration for the culture of the people and abilities of each liturgical assembly. Although it is not always necessary, especially in weekday masses, to sing all the texts that are themselves meant to be sung, every care should be taken that singing by the ministers and the people is not absent in celebrations that occur on Sundays and on holy days of obligation. In the choosing of the parts actually to be sung, however, preference should be given to those that are of greater importance, and especially to those to be sung by the priest or the deacon or the lector, with the people responding, or by the priest and the people together. Um, it's something that you see it in maybe gospel kind of, there's a church there somewhere up
Yeah,
in Dublin, they do gospel choirs and that kind of
yeah,
thing.
you'll hear it. You'll hear it all over in generally speaking, in where mass is celebrating the universal language of the Catholic faith, Latin. That's the universal language. That's why you can get mass in any part of the world, and that kind of singing would be a feature. The sacred music, the Gregorian chant. Well, it's not the Gregorian words and in Latin. And you know something? The Palestinian choir in the Pro Cathedral, they would be singing along those lines because they've been trained. And I think they used to travel abroad. A lot of that seems to have stopped. The sort of the fact that what we had here by way of the celebration of Holy Mass was and the choirs were often gone abroad. We had our ladies' choir, we had choral societies, and they often travelled abroad, and the places would be packed with our Irish American ancestors, 30 million or more of them, and they would be packed. So this was a feature, and we don't seem to have that now, or regretfully, except as I say, what Mass is celebrated in the universal language of Latin. And unfortunately, with the present occupants in the Vatican, they seem to have some problem. And yet they entertain all sorts of kind of funny things. But that's a separate issue. But the Latin is the way to sing it. And as we're talking about it and the singing, I hope you'll bear with me as I sing
Yeah,
Salve Regina.
very
I'm going
good,
to
very
sing
good.
that, and it would be the sort of hymns that I would have known like that.
Very
And not
good.
just me, but everybody in the
Let's
congregation
let's hear it,
up
John
to
Malone.
Lewis. Yeah, okay. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae, Vita Dulcis, et spes nostra, salve. A te clamamus, exultus filiae have, a te supremus, gentes et flentes, in hac laramani mum vale. Ergo advocatat nostra filios tuos misericordiae oculos ad nos converte, et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Virgo Maria. Now, that's what we used to hear, and more besides. The
That was
Credo
very,
Lumen
very
Deum.
good.
Well, that's the Latin, and that's the kind of the Gregorian.
Yeah, it's lovely.
The Gregorian. Yeah,
Yeah,
Pope
yeah.
Gregory brought that in hundreds
Who?
of years ago. Pope Gregory. That's why it's called the Gregorian chant.
Okay, I've
He
never heard of
inaugurated that.
Pope Gregory. When was Pope
Yeah,
Gregory around?
Pope Gregory the Great, or Pope Gregory the 13th. It was Pope Gregory anyway, hundreds of years ago that brought that in. And you see, people join in, and the congregation joined in. Don't forget, the apostle was ordinary people, fishermen. They weren't one of the educated class, but yet they had the faith once Jesus gave them the Holy Spirit. And up to that, they were afraid of their shadow. Once they got that, out they went, converted all round. Once they said, how can we convert it? You have to repent. And so this is the part of and then for hundreds of years, the Latin came into being, and that's the way documents and everything was sent in Latin because everybody could understand it. They might have their own culture and their own sort of local languages, but the Latin was the universal language of the Catholic faith. So did you get mass in any part of the world if you happen to be traveling by boat? There wasn't planes knocking about them times.
Very good. And you know what? And just to mention, in the Orthodox Church, you also have the most beautiful singers. You know, I've been to the church a few times, and you know, you have these beautiful hymns they sing, and you just when you hear them, you just go into a trance. It's just amazing.
That's right. And funny enough, they have that. I've heard it on the YouTube, and I'd listened to it because it's just uplifting. And that's one great thing about the Orthodox faith, where they have their hymns still in that kind of
Tradition.
traditional way of singing, and it is uplifting when you hear it, even if you don't, if it's not in Latin, it might be in whatever it's the Greek Orthodox or Russian Orthodox or whatever Orthodox church it is, but they do have a great uh, hymn singing, and it's very moving. I heard one when I was in the Holy Land. As a matter of fact, I stayed and become and was singing as well with them. I looked as if I was part of their congregation. And then Don went down to a place down in the crypt or somewhere where we had been with our pilgrimage, and we were in and out like a fiddler's elbow. Whereas they were down there singing away, and I was in, and then somebody gave me a candle, and then I was singing with my candle. And then they blew out the cans, but I kept mine going, and somebody blew it out for me. So that was the Orthodox. Talk about singing, talk about reverence. I
There you
still
go.
remember it.
Very good.
I
Very
probably
good.
have to go to a few more Orthodox churches to hear that sort of singing.
It's you know, it's the one thing I think that would help people to come back to the church. We were talking about various things, you know, but singing is the universal thing, you know. So I think it reaches all people, all souls, and it's very good for
It
the
does.
soul. And I think
And young people, especially, because young people are searching, even if they're searching the wrong places, they're searching. And if they hear something like that, and hear that sort of sung in that way, like the Orthodox or in the Latin universal language of Catholic faith sung with with that clarity. Because you don't have to understand the language, but I learned Latin in secondary school and was good at Latin, honours in the intercert and damn near honours in the leaving cert, even though I had changed school from boarding school because you'd be starving at boarding school. It was like a skeleton when I came out of it, and but not like a skeleton. So I went to the presentation brothers, and by goodness, you know something? Uh, it's the singing, it's the Latin, right? Honest to goodness, it lifts you, and I still have such happy memories of it. Even though when you're young, you're searching too, aren't you? You're only learning, and as you're going through life, you're learning all the time. It's not something even me at my age, I'm learning all the time.
that's it. Thanks very much, John.
Thanks very much, Oliver.